So when we're talking about these different elements or these different crowns, title, of course, is Fellowship of the Crown. And it leads me to Luke 15. Luke 15. Now, if you can get this, I think a lot of us might be in a position or a time in our life where we could really reread this story, look at this story, and understand. I ask myself the question, how should I then live? How should I live? Not walking by you guys, but by myself. How should I live? Luke 15 says it like this. It says, then he said, a certain man had 2 sons. And the younger of his sons said to the father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls or belongs to me. So he divided it to them, his livelihood. Now notice, he gave it to both of them, right? He said he divided to them. That means both of them received. And then not many days after, the younger son gathered all his stuff together, and he went to a far country, and he there wasted his possessions with prodigal or riotous living, right? So no sooner does he get his stuff, what does he do? He leaves, and he wastes his money. And he spent all that there was. There arose a severe famine in the land, and he began to be in want. Now this is always, I don't know about you, but when I read this verse, I say, I've been there before. The bad thing doesn't happen until I spend all my money. I mean, he said he spent all he had, and he's thinking, what? It's going to last forever. But then right after he spent all he had, there arose a severe famine, and he began to be in want or need. And then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. So that citizen sent this guy, which would mean he's not a citizen, right? I mean, prodigal couldn't be a citizen if it says he went to a citizen, because he's coming from another place. He came from where his land, he went into a far or distant country. I don't know about you, but just the way it normally works, except maybe here. But in other countries, you can't just go in and demand stuff. They won't let you in. Or they'll kick you out, or they'll throw you in prison. In this case, he was part of one country. He left and went to another far country. Where he got there, that country had a severe famine. Now he spent all he had, and he doesn't have anything, so he joined himself to another citizen or someone in that country, and they said, well, you're going to have to work to go feed the pigs. Well, what kind of food does pigs eat? And he would gladly have fed his stomach with the pods that the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything. So he's feeding the pigs, but that's the pig food. He's like, well, can I get some food? And they said, no. Isn't it hard? It could be really hard sometimes when you're doing your own thing, or I'm doing my own thing. And at some point, you should wake up. I should wake up and conclude, maybe I should do something different. Maybe I should change. And then verse 16, but when he came to himself, I really like that verse. What did he say when he said he came to himself? He said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough to eat, and I'm perishing with hunger? He's like, man, I'm really going through it out here, right? And he said, but he came to himself, he had this thought. Have you ever had that thought? Like sometimes you're doing something like, wait, what am I doing? Am I the only one? Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing what I'm doing? When am I going to stop doing what I'm doing? But he said, I will arise and go to my father, because he knows his father is pretty decent, because he's in this country and no one's giving him any food. They're not even giving him pigs food. You thought you had it rough where you were. Go to this place, right? Then he realizes, wait, my father isn't too bad, because he even gives all the servants bread. This pig food is not bread, but I'm not even getting pig food. So he said, I'm going to go home to my father, and I'll say to him, now he's planning this out in his mind, Father, I have sinned against you and before you. I've sinned against heaven and before you. And I'm no longer worthy to be called what? Your son. Make me just like one of your hired servants. So, it says, he rose up, he came to his father, and when he was still a great way off, his father saw him, had compassion on him, ran, fell on his neck, and kissed him. So he says, I'm going to go home to my father. And so when he's going home, it says his father saw him, which would indicate what? He's looking for him, right? He's waiting for him. It's just not a coincidence. And he rose, and while he was coming, his father saw him, and his father had compassion and ran and fell on him because his son's making a move back toward the father. Now, what's really interesting about this, when we talk about this, the Father God is so interested in you. He's just waiting for you to kind of look at him so he can love you, right? Like, I have this dog. The most important thing with my dog is don't make eye contact. Because if you look at him and he sees you looking at him, he'll start coming towards you. And you're like, I'm not wanting to do anything. His name is Buddy. Buddy, today's not the day. And he don't care. He's going to keep coming towards you. And then he'll put his head on you. And if you let that sit for a little bit, then he's going to put a paw. And then another paw. And then pretty soon he's on you. And like you think like, I'm going to smell like dog. Buddy, you got to get down. I got things to do. But Buddy don't care, because as long as you're making eye contact with Buddy, he's coming for you. And he sneaks up on you like you'll think like you're not watching, and he moves real slow. And so you start taking a step toward him, and he'll start taking a step towards you, and before you know it, he'll just lunge at you. Well, in a general sense, you see this verse, you see the son is just making a small step toward the father. Father starts running at the son, right? Running to him. Fell on his neck and kissed him. Next verse. Verse 21. So, as soon as that comes up. And the son says to the father, right? The son says to the father, I have sinned and I'm no longer worthy to be called your son in your sight. And the father basically ignores him. Basically, like, disregards what he says. Verse 22, he said, the father says to the servants, go bring the best robe, put it on him, bring a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. So the son's coming with this pre-thought reason as to why he did everything. He's not worthy, he's not worthy, he's not worthy. And the father disregards it. And he says, hey, go put a robe on him because he's my son. Go put a ring on him. Go put the sandals on him. And this is interesting because when we're talking about the crown of righteousness, right standing, if we just take that step back to God, that causes the fellowship to be restored. And the fellowship is what you and I need to get the answer to solve the problem that we are experiencing in our situation or our circumstance. That fellowship is important. And we're going to look at this a little bit more. So he says, bring the fatted calf here and kill it. Let us eat and be sad. No, he said, let us eat and be what? Merry, or let's be glad. And he said, for this son that was dead and is alive again, he was lost, but he's found. And they began to be merry. Means they had a party. And then his older son was in the field, and when he heard what was going on, the music and the dancing, he came and he was not happy. He called one of the servants and said, what is this? What's going on? What's all with the music and the dancing? The servant said, your brother has come, and because he was received safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf. And then the son was angry and would not go into the house. Therefore, his father came out and pleaded with him. Again, the father is building restoration, right? So he answered and said to his father, all these years I've served you, and I've never transgressed your commandment at any time. You've never even given me a goat Forget the cow. I've never even had a goat that I might have a party with my friends. Which, technically that is not true because he already gave them half of everything, right? He already split it up with them. And then this son, as soon as now he noticed this, he didn't say my brother. He says, as soon as your son comes, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots and prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him. Now this is interesting because he never mentioned what he was doing. He said he wasted the money. He didn't say it was with harlots. But the older son is sitting at home thinking about harlots. Because the Bible never said he spent it. He just said he wasted his money. He could have been in a casino. He could have been betting chariot races. I mean, he could have been doing anything. But this older son's like, your son. Like when, say, my daughters, when they were younger, because they would never do anything wrong today. But when they were younger, if they made a mistake, my wife would say, your daughter did this. You need to talk to your daughter. I'm like, isn't it your daughter too? Well, when they get good grades, now it's your daughter. When they're challenged in their education, now it's my daughter. Like, your daughter got a C. Oh, what'd your daughter get? Well, which one? The one that got an A. Oh, yeah, that's my daughter. Right? You're always like, what's up with these kids? So he said to him, son, you're always with me, and all that I have is yours. He said, but it was right that we should make merry and be glad, for your brother who was dead is alive again. He was lost, but now he's found. So this is a very interesting story to me. A couple things to point out is, one, the younger son who left had enough sense to come back. He just made a step, and even though he was planning a speech, he's like, well, this is what I need to do. But he understood the father was good enough to at least give his servants bread. Now, the older son is, I think, could be a lot of what we would say a very religious person. Maybe some of your friends are like the older son. They are critical, judgmental, harsh Christians who are the pillars of the church, meaning they stand in the way of everybody else. These guys aren't concerned about what's really happening in their family. They're more concerned just about what? Themselves. He's saying, your son, not my brother, but your son. He wasted this, and I never did that. Self-righteous, right? I never did that. I never wasted on harlots. You never gave me anything. And yet the father is saying, all I have is already yours. You just don't see it. You just don't recognize it. You could have had a party at any time, but you don't see me like that. You see me as someone who's hard and cruel or what have you. But it's really interesting because typically there'll be many Christians who will, instead of helping people come back to the Lord, they want to push them away. Saying, you don't deserve it. You messed up. You're bad. Only I deserve it. But look at this. But that's not any fellowship there. Is there? No. There's no fellowship. There's no mutual interest or sharing of something that you enjoy together. So the Father's always trying to reconcile, bring people together. Hebrews 4:16. How should we then live? When we're talking about the fellowship of the crown.